Tensions were increasing across Europe. Under Adolf Hitler and the National Socialist Party, Germany had reclaimed its place among the world's powers. Their economy was prospering, there was no unemployment, and the military was reconstituted. The Kriegsmarine, Luftwaffe, and ground forces were back on their feet, ready to protect the fatherland from the west and east if necessary. Following difficult discussions, the United Kingdom had agreed to enable the German Navy to re-establish itself. The British soon regretted their decision, as the Kriegsmarine grew rapidly, posing a direct danger to the Royal Navy's dominance at sea. As a result, the Royal Navy issued the 1938 Naval Program to prepare the naval force for a potential battle with the Third Reich. Little did they know this was the birth of one of the most terrifying naval vessels during World War II. This is the story of how the British created one of the most feared combat vessels, the HMS Implacable. Under the 1938 Naval Program, a proposal was made to expand and modernize the Royal Navy in response to mounting threats from Germany, Fascist Italy, and, to a lesser extent, the Japanese Empire. In acknowledgement of the ever-changing nature of naval combat, new battleships and aircraft carriers were to be built, focusing on air power. As part of the modernization process, existing ships would be outfitted with new technologies, armaments, and equipment. Given the possibility of German U-boats lurking in the North Sea, the 1938 program included efforts to improve anti-submarine capabilities. Germany's annexation of Austria, Czechoslovakia, and other regions heightened tensions with France and the United Kingdom, causing the Royal Navy to rapidly create a new type of aircraft carrier, the Implacable class. An enhanced version of the illustrious class carriers was proposed. The modern ships were planned to be over 2 knots faster and slightly larger to carry more aircraft. The design requirements were precisely developed to adhere to the 23,000-long-ton limit imposed by the Washington Naval Treaty, which World War I victors negotiated during peacetime. A 4th steam turbine and shaft were installed to achieve a spectacular top speed of roughly 32 knots. However, compromises were made to accommodate the increased weight of the upgraded propulsion and larger air fleet. The armor thickness of the hangar deck and bulkheads was purposefully lowered, reflecting a shift in carrier design emphasis towards speed and aircraft capacity above defense capabilities. British engineers worked hard to make the aircraft carrier's interior as spacious as possible. Initially, the hangar weight was designed primarily to accommodate the Fairey albacore, with a maximum height of 4 meters. The bottom hangar was expanded to 5 meters to accommodate fighters. However, it was quickly recognized that the airplanes required more space, resulting in a modest increase to the hangar heights. Overall, the armored flight deck was 31 meters wide and had a single hydraulic aircraft catapult. The Implacable was additionally outfitted with 2 lifts in the center. The main armor of the carrier was increased to more than 51 millimeters. The flight deck armor was 76 millimeters thick, while the magazines were protected by armor ranging from 76 to 114 millimeters thick. Implacable's greatest advantage was its sturdy protection, covering the aircraft from above, sides, and with 2 enormous bulkheads, forming an impenetrable citadel once the exterior lifts were shut. Unlike US Navy carriers, the ship sacrificed aircraft capacity for armor. The final design, Design D, was submitted to the Board of Admiralty in August 1938 and could accommodate up to 81 aircraft. After weeks of debate and modifications, the design was eventually passed. The HMS Implacable's arsenal was identical to that of the illustrious class cruisers, with one noteworthy exception: it had fewer anti-aircraft guns. Its principal weaponry consisted of 16 quick-firing 4.5-inch dual-purpose guns mounted in twin gun turrets. These guns fired rounds at speeds surpassing 740 meters per second and had a range of over 18,000 meters. Implacable's secondary armament included 5 octuple and 1 quad quick-firing 2-pounder pom-pom anti-aircraft guns, capable of engaging targets up to 6,200 meters away. The ship's defensive capabilities were further reinforced by 21 and 61 Oerlikon 20mm anti-aircraft guns, each installed separately for close-range defense. 4 Mark V M-type fire control directors, each equipped with a Type 285 gunnery radar, helped target acquisition. The Vickers 2 PDR pom-pom guns were controlled by their own Mark IV director and Type 282 gunnery radar. High above, Implacable's tripod mast was outfitted with a Type 293 target indicator radar, which was supplemented by a Type 277 radar installed on the bridge for surface search and height detection. The ship's transformation from blueprint to battle-ready began in February 1939 at Fairfield Shipbuilding and Engineering Company. However, her construction was delayed in 1940 and 1941 because resources were moved to prioritize boats important to the Battle of the Atlantic, which pitted the Royal Navy against the Kriegsmarine. In December 1942, Princess Elizabeth christened the ship and launched it into the waters. Implacable was officially commissioned in May 1944, just as the Allies prepared to invade France with Operation Overlord. After completing sea trials, she joined the fight in August 1944, armed with a diverse air group of 24 Barracudas, 12 Fireflies, 12 Hellcats, and 12 Seafires. Implacable's first combat mission began in October 1944, when it was tasked with tracking down the German battleship Tirpitz, which had recently been sighted departing Kafjord, Norway. Implacable's planes successfully identified the Tirpitz after departing from Scotland on October 16th with the HMS Bellona and a contingent of destroyers. However, due to the lack of fighter escort for the bombers, the German battleship escaped undamaged. Now, let's consider Operation Athletic, which was a daring carrier raid that struck a major blow to German shipping. At the heart of the mission was the HMS Implacable, loaded with deadly Fairey Barracuda torpedo bombers and agile Fairey Firefly fighters. Their targets, ports along the western coast of Norway, packed with German ships including ferries, patrol boats, and even a U-boat. The Implacable's air group unleashed a fury as ships went up in flames and the U-boat limped away wounded. In total, 6 German vessels were sunk, a major blow to their supply lines. Operation Athletic wasn't just a win for the Allies, it was a turning point. It marked one of the last major British offensives in Norway and the final wartime torpedo attack by the Royal Navy. The Implacable was a key contributor to the victory. On December 15th, when winter tightened its hold, the Implacable took refuge in Rosyth, her body worn but unbreakable. Here she underwent a metamorphosis, her arsenal strengthened to unleash hellfire on the Pacific's kamikaze menace. On March 10, 1945, HMS Implacable's overhaul was finished, and she was assigned to Squadrons 801, 828, 880, and 1771. Her decks were now home to the largest air group ever organized on a British carrier, with 48 Seafires, 21 Avengers, and 12 Fireflies. Implacable departed late in the month and traveled through the Suez Canal and arrived in Australia in May 1945. Following the breaking news that as of early May 1945 the war in Europe had ended, the crew took a quick rest as there was still fighting to be done in the Pacific against the Japanese Empire. On May 29th, the HMS Implacable arrived to the British Pacific Fleet's major base on Manus Island, in what is now Papua New Guinea, where she fell under the command of Rear Admiral Sir Patrick Brint. This critical position laid the groundwork for Operation Inmate, a daring operation aimed at capturing control of the Japanese naval base in the Caroline Islands, with a concentrated, decisive attack. Launched on June 14th, the operation saw Implacable's planes carry out 113 offensive missions over 2 days. Interestingly, these attacks resulted in losing only 1 Seafire before the carrier retreated to Manus Island for resupply. July brought the real fight. The British Pacific Fleet started on a strategic push towards the Japanese mainland on July 6th, arriving near the coast by July 16th. Implacable's Barracuda bombers and Firefly fighters swarmed industrial centers around Tokyo, Osaka, and the Inland Sea. These weren't just random targets, they were Japan's war machine. Factories, transportation hubs, and ships all felt the sting of the Implacable's air group. The mission wasn't easy. Bad weather and constant refueling needs hampered the attacks, but the Implacable's crew pushed on, determined to cripple Japan's ability to wage war. The full impact of these strikes might never fully be known, but the message was clear. Japan's ability to fight was crumbling. These attacks, along with those of the entire BPF, undoubtedly played a part in weakening their resolve and hastening the war's end. The atomic bombs finally brought the official surrender, but let's not forget the relentless pressure from carriers like the Implacable as their attacks battered Japan's war machine. On August 12th, the HMS Implacable returned to Manus Island, filling the air with anticipation and hope that the war would soon be over. This notion was realized shortly thereafter when Japan surrendered to the Allies. HMS Implacable was repaired after the war and outfitted to house Allied prisoners of war taken by the Japanese. On September 25, 1945, the carrier arrived in Manila Bay, where it loaded almost 2,000 American, Canadian, and British POWs. Throughout the year, she collected and transported men from the Pacific to Europe. She was briefly retired during the early years of the Cold War, but tensions with the Soviet Union prompted her to be recommissioned in 1952 as the flagship of the Home Fleet Training Squadron. She never saw action after World War II, and her responsibilities were limited to military exercises with partner nations. HMS Implacable was decommissioned in September 1954 and demolished a year later after the Royal Navy found no use for her. Although her time in combat was brief, she will be remembered as one of the most successful combat vessels of World War II. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, share and subscribe.